Am I audible, sir?
Yes. You're audible.
The topic of today's webinar is digital game-based learning, and we have with us a very eminent speaker for the webinar, Dr. Marcin Wardaszko, Head of the Department of Quantitative Methods and Information Technology at Kozminski University, Warsaw, Poland. First of all, I would like to request Vice Chancellor of Shri Vaishnav Vidyapeeth Vishwavidyalaya and Conference Chairperson of ISAGA-2021, Dr. Upinder Dhar, for the welcome address. Over to you, sir.
Good afternoon, India time. At the outset, I welcome all of you to this, I think, 20th webinar. And we have a great speaker today, Dr. Marcin. I still remember his hospitality when we were in Poland, Warsaw, 2 years back. It was great to meet him, and excellent arrangements that he had made. Everybody who had attended ISAGA that year was very happy. So we are happy, we are very much pleased that, and we are also thankful to him that he has agreed to deliver the webinar today. I also welcome all other members of ISAGA fraternity to this webinar. So not standing for a long time between our resource person and all those who have joined for listening to him. So with these words, once again, welcome to all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir.
Today's 21st webinar.
Okay. So I stand corrected, 21st. 21st is a very important date. Said this year, 21st June will be the longest day of the year. Okay, please go ahead.
Thank you, sir, for giving information about 21st. Now, before inviting our speaker for the session, I would like to give their brief introduction to our audience. Dr. Marcin Wardaszko is head of the Department of Quantitative Methods and Information Technology at Kozminski University and adjunct professor at University of Applied Science, Vorarlberg, collaborating partner at HCD Learning Limited, Shanghai, China. Since 2003, he is trainer and developer of simulation games and gamification systems for education, business, and consulting. He is author of many publications on game-based learning and serious game design. Dr. Marcin is passionate game designer, author, and co-author of around 60 scientific publications. He is fellow at ABSEL and president of ISAGA 2019 to 2020 and member of SAG-Saga. Dr. Marcin is laureate of the CEE-MAN 2019 Champion in Teaching Award for Innovative VR Game-Based Learning Program. Once again, I would like to welcome our guest speaker and request him to please start the session.
Thank you very much. And I'm really honored for this invitation, and I'm very happy to be able to speak to you guys. Can you hear me good? Is everything technically? So thank you for the kind introduction, and I will begin. Let me share the screen. Okay, so first of all, I'm really honored because I was watching. I could not attend all of them because unfortunately I teach on weekends, and I will have to teach after this webinar as well. But I was looking at on the YouTube at this excellent webinars, and also deciding on what do I want to talk about today. Is I wanted, because you heard a lot of excellent contributions on the scientific level, and myself, I consider myself like a grease monkey of simulation gaming. It means we try to basically build things from ground up and try to implement in education. So what I wanted to show you today is basically I wanted to share first of all my experiences over the last almost 20 years of creating and using games in education and also in research, and also to have a little bit different outlook, more practical outlook on the usage in the education. So I want to this, and of course this will be all connected with technology, because this is what our team at Kozminski University specializes in. So we basically specialize in the digital games and for learning. And of course this with different technologies comes different perks and abilities, but also drawbacks that I want to talk about. But I also want to touch the other side, which is basically the learning aspects of how to implement this and how to use this properly in the educational context, also based both on our successes, but also a little bit on our failures as well, because we have those too. So on the beginning, I would like to say that I don't work alone. I have a very excellent agile team in my center, and we are mixed of different backgrounds people, and we work on different projects and we create. So I also owe a credit to my team that works hard with me, and together we bring the games to people from the white piece of paper when we start writing them to actual technology that we implement to the classroom or digital learning environment. So I would like to start a little bit from the higher note. It's just in a little bit of an introduction from the learning perspective. And if you let's look at the very big picture, that you can use games in education in 4 different contexts. And the first one is the most common used, for example, in business education, and this is games as a summary of knowledge and skills. And it's usually used at the end, by the end or at the end of the educational process. And then we, of course, have a large simulation games. I'm mostly referring to digital games, but not only. And then, of course, they are large, complex, usually simulation taking a lot of time and spanning over the vast amount of knowledge, skills, and different areas. And this is one of those big simulations and games, especially in business gaming, are aimed for, but not only, also in policy gaming and so on. And of course, the ability, the goal here is to basically show the people and give them the taste of the complexity of the real life, and also being able to train in this virtual containers, like Professor Klabers would used to say. And of course, usually such games require vast knowledge also from the educators. And then the next one is exactly the opposite, which is the games as a motivation to learn and knowledge and skills gap recognition, which are usually based on the beginning of the process. They are usually much, much simpler, spanning over one area or one element. They don't have to be digital. They can be any type of games. And of course, the aim is to basically not to teach people something, but basically motivate, make them curious about something. And of course, usually use them on the beginning of the process. But then the learning goal is actually self-learning and self-discovery rather than learning something. And then, of course, then we have the games that are supporting on a particular specific field of knowledge of skills. And they are usually used as a complementary element to a specific area of knowledge. And then basically we use this in the middle of process, but then the games are smaller by go into the deeper subject. Like change management games, project management games, games that in virtual reality to teach you to use particular machine or a safety training. This is like very specialized, very narrow games, but they go deep into certain element. And then let's say the least common, usually used mostly by the consulting companies, is the games as an assessment and a test center. And this is basically the games used as a separation from the learning process. It's basically as a virtual test ground, virtual training, like in a military sense. And also a lot of military use this simulations and simulation games as a form of assessment of abilities of, for example, leadership abilities we work together with the National Defense Academy of Poland, and they have a huge simulator of the battlefield, and they use it for the assessment of the leadership skills of the future officers on the battlefield. So this is like basically like Tor, and they all of them have their implications in terms of how we use them, and that is the how effectiveness and what we should expect of them, because learning and the games usage should never be without the goal. And those goals are dependent on what context we use the games. And of course, there's always, you've probably seen this before, you always have the question is how much reality and how much abstraction should be in the game. And then in the digital game-based learning, we tend to go down on this scale. It means the games are less abstract because the sophisticated calculation and mathematical model allow us to simulate the reality to the quite high degree. So, but this is not always the case. But in majority of the simulation games, we tend to go more deeper in here, downwards here to simulate more realistic environments. And then, of course, the choice of the realism is very important, especially if we want to have the game that teaches heavily, for example, have a very particular sets of skills. If we want to have more knowledge, self-discovery oriented, then the abstraction level usually works better. And then, or usually the typical question is this, for this is, so should I build my own games or should I license existing ones? And the answer, unfortunately, it depends. Because there is always usually on the market, there is a lot of different games available in many areas, like business games. There are already thousands of them available from all across the world. And of course, there is always, let's say, the question with it, should I build my own games or should I license? And this is basically every implementation and every solution has its pros and cons. It's never 0-1 solution. Maybe if you license, you have a very low entry cost barrier level. It means you have also choice of many solutions on the markets and many providers. You have to just train your trainers, your academics, and then basically you can start using this in extremely short period of time, even within like a week or two. And then, of course, but on the other hand, you buy somebody else's idea, and in many cases, the game are quite generalistic, so they lack the local flavor of and in many of them are very little or to no customization offer. So there's, on the other hand, is very easily scalable, and you can have them fast for a relatively low amount of money. If you want to build your own solution, first of all, there is a high entry level because you have to invest in your own development. And this is more or less a long-term decision. On the other hand, you of course to have, let's say, people who can do this, but I assume we have those. And then on the other hand, you will create a unique solution that is also an ability to generate some revenue in the future, because you can start, like, for example, even licensing to the other universities or companies. And of course, you don't really need to train the trainers, because basically your training crew is the people who start designing the game and test this. And also during the process, you generate a lot of knowledge. And this is one of the added value that is often let's say, omitted in this process. You generate a lot of knowledge during the creation of your own simulation game. And again, this is always the choice of the local optimization, and this is let's say based on the individual values. What do I need? Right? We have to answer ourselves. And then, of course, the other is how heavy on technology we should go. And then I have basically here like a list in terms of, and here is the technology factor. The more down we go, let's say the more technology heavy, both in requirements of hardware and software, and that, let's say, unfortunately also technical abilities skills we have to have in order to operate such games for educational context. And of course, they start with no technology at all. We just need some space and people living all virtual space. And of course, like free-form games and role-play games does not require any form of technology besides people, instructor, and some space. And of course, they are excellent as well in the learning context. But I will not, let's say, refer to them, as I want to focus in my discussion on the digital games. And of course, we have serious board games. These are extremely popular and extremely valuable in our desert, and there is a plethora of them that are actually, due to pandemic, however, that the usage of those first four actually solutions drop dramatically from obvious reasons. So for example, in digital space, we see sudden explosion of needs, especially that a lot of board games can be played online, but it's quite tricky and it's not the same. A hybrid games is a hybrid between board game and computer game, and basically it has both physical elements and computer simulation elements. And they're also quite popular, as basically the computer usually do the heavy lifting in terms of calculation of results and response to the players. And then we go into the digital domain, and the first was this traditional serial computer games, or played through the dedicated application or through the web browser. And of course, this is the biggest group of games that exists in the whole, let's say, space right now. And they span variety of topics, and also variety of different languages, points, the industries and topics they are covering. And of course, there is no, again, good or bad solution. You have to basically look through the number of them if you want to use them, and choose those who fit the best in your curriculum. And then, of course, we also design such games. We'll be showing 2-3 examples of those in my later, and also be talking about them, how we build them, how we use them in the education, because the context varies. And also I would touch a little bit on pandemic and the situation of moving from let's say more classroom oriented learning to digital learning. And then we have also what we start also to pioneering almost 7 years ago, and the mobile games for learning, and of course using mobile gaming as a teaching, like incidental teaching environment. And of course, I'll be showing the first example how we use them and what you can use it for in the future. And then we have altered reality games. Altered reality games is games that are based on like creating a parallel reality that is gaming reality, but played in the space of the real world. And of course, this also is the typical, very interesting way to create different types of spatial and location-based games. And then, of course, then we have augmented reality, virtual reality, and mixed reality games, which, of course, are the hottest trend right now. And also the usage of those propelled by the pandemic, many 100% over the last 2 years. And we also design, we already using 2 of those. One of those we have produced ourselves, and then we'll show you also and share my experiences with those as well. So the first one I would like to show to you is basically our system, which is Hotel Stars. Maybe you even seen it, because I was presenting this at the conferences the last time in Bangkok and in 2019. And this is basically a very big simulation to teach young people, young adults, entrepreneurship, and features quite unique features. Is basically it's top touchscreen optimized, so the best played on, for example, on the tablet. It's also single page design, so we use basically design that is always on one page. You never have to scroll anywhere. And of course, it's quite interactive map, and the whole, let's say, game is interactive. There is a specific complexity model that it's original design about the player's experiences. We have also very rich onboarding and tutorial. We have also heavy storytelling with the comic books and the virtual advisor. As you can see, we have also, if you've probably seen this, you've probably seen all those mechanics not in the simulation game, but in the video game industry. And what we basically did, we learned and inherited a lot of, let's say, design specifications from the video game industry, which we cooperate quite closely here in Warsaw. And we use those elements, the design elements, for the learning environment design. So we try to marry the video game design with the serious game design. And of course, this was heavily impacted how the game was played and how it was perceived by the mostly young people, because the target audience for this game is people between 15 and 18 years old. And of course, it has full reporting, but we start quite simply. It spans over 4 years of 16 decision rounds, which one decision round is 1 quarter. But the important is that the game is just the backbone of the whole learning system. And this is very important. The game is just the center of it. And then we have basically a lot of elements around it. The game can be played in teams between 1 and 3 players, actually. You basically run and manage hotel in virtual pecunia, which is Latin for money. And then, of course, the idea was that we did some research and we asked young people what they see themselves as doing in like entrepreneurship environment. And one of the most frequent comments that they, for example, with the rise of Airbnb, of course, that they see themselves, for example, running like renting apartments, renting space. So we chose like a small virtual hotel. And you have played the 17 decision rounds. It has complexity model with 2 loops. I will show this in a minute. And of course, it features also dynamic scenario that features seasonality, random events, competition, which is the final boss fight, basically. So again, we inherited the structure here of the game from the video game industry. It's based on the flow-oriented experience. And it's basically, it has a double loop of the changes. So during the year, every year, there are some small changes. And then every full year, we have a storytelling. We have a large changes to the game. And we introduce new aspects like banking, labor market, employment, marketing. And of course, the last one is this introduction of the competition, which is also considered the final boss fight. And this, of course, gives this, first of all, people to ability to, first of all, to get better over the 16 round, but also always prepare them for a challenge. And there are new challenges come into play every single. And it has a big impact on the immersion and play. And we use this game quite heavily, especially for the younger people. And then we see that this type of design was much better than the traditional design style that does not contain all those video gaming references. And of course, this all is accompanied by the rich teaching program, which has scenario manuals, program syllabi with all the detailed lesson scenarios, 20 presentation covering all the games, knowledge, and the program, exercises both in class and offline for the homework. We have also 3 experience-based exercises, which one of those is a small like a negotiation game for students to try to build an association from like an industry association within the city of Pecunia. And this was actually, of course, the step towards the teachers, because usually with us, we have also a version that does not require a teacher. And then most of those things like presentation tasks and exercises and also mini quizzes are delivered in digital form. We have also did some research on the young people representative group of the young people in Poland. There's like a very simplified OECD, and we saw significant differences before and after. So this was a pre-test, post-test type of research. We analyzed their results and the answers on the beginning of the course and a few months later when they finished the course, because it was the real program introduced to the 12 high schools in Poland. And then this is also shows males and females, and you can see there were also some statistical significant differences between the males and females in Poland for the answers. So first of all, there was a lot of changes to the self-vision of themselves. It means how they perceive themselves as entrepreneurs. As you can see here, we have much stronger response from boys. On the other hand, if you look at the chain to important knowledge on economics, then we can see here that the girls were much strongly responding in most of the cases, and they see the value of economic knowledge in much higher degree. And of course, this is also interesting. The perception of control actually dropped for the most of them. And this is due to the very important element, which is called disillusion. And of course, if you have a idealistic view, how, let's say, entrepreneurs are working and the managers are working, and of course, this is basically this disillusional effect is coming, because the reality, unfortunately, is harder than this vision ideas. And of course, this is also acceptance of risks. And of course, they were playing usually extremely risky in the game. And then, of course, this dropped significantly. And a very interesting is also that it had a different, completely different opposite direction for girls and boys. It means they're actually, for the girls, in many cases, there were more risk accepting on the end of the game than on the beginning. And the boy were very cocky on the beginning, but on the end, they were more modest. So we saw that there's actually, you can influence people. So the outcome of this study was that we can actually influence people's perception of the entrepreneurship with the game-based learning course. Also, the game can be easily localized. It has been built in the Modular. This is our Chinese version. This is fully digital version, and you can use basically any language. It's very easily to adapt and localize in any language that is. So this is our Chinese version. The other game that I want to feature is a web browser game, is a pop-up shop helper, which is interesting. This was sponsored by the European Union, so you can play this for free. So if you go to this project, you can play this as well yourself alone. It's absolutely free of charge. Everyone can play it. It features 5 different languages. It also has a modular, lightweight design. You can add easily new languages to this. And this was part of the project directed towards the creators and the creative industry members. So we wanted to create a gaming experiences that was light, casual for the people who want to move into entrepreneurial space, but they don't really have the knowledge, background, and knowledge about economics, management, costs, pricing, anything. So what we did is basically we did like 100 interviews in 5 different countries. And what based on those experiences we created like a lightweight casual game to play for people to just fool around with this basically. And basically this is the game that's for self-discovery and the experiential learning loop. It's basically a non-punishing loop that lets you experience those elements and in a fun way. And of course, all the game is based on the real life stories of entrepreneurs, because we did around 100 interviews across Europe with them. And then we basically extracted the most in the common parts and interesting stories, and we implemented this. And of course, what is interesting, actually, I've built a real-time game engine for this game. So it can also be played in rounds, but also can be played as a real-time game. And of course, there is also, when I design a game engine, I'm, let's say, a fetishist in terms of in-game events, and I created like 6 different types of game events that create stories, player agency. It depends on what you do, karma system, and so on. So really perverse. So basically, the game is very simple. You have 4 locations in a city. Each location have its own ability. And you basically make decisions you switch yourself around. There is some basic direction, which is we are standing in the network, your well-being, your community, and you make decisions in weeks. There are like very detailed product decisions, but very simple sales, marketing, personal, and there are some basic reporting tool. And the game is actually to create very lightweight experience. For example, and we have some very nice experiences. For example, in one of the art schools in Spain. This game became like a mandatory element for art students where they finish their bachelor level studies, in order to make them feel, okay, you are having the skills now, but if you want to commercialize your skills, that this is completely different level, different world of skills and abilities that you want to learn and then you want to. But if I'm not gonna talk about this, if you want to, you can play it by yourself. Just go to this address, and their simulation game together also with the other learning elements are there, and you can use them. They are all free, and have fun basically with this. And of course, this is like two different types of game design. The first one, the Hotel Stars, is a very heavy, very learning content-oriented game that is very detailed, spans over the whole semester, or even can span over 2 semesters. And it goes basically through the whole learning, the whole learning program for basics of entrepreneurship, economics, and management. And it's designed to give like on the end of that some kind of a learning process, to give like this whole big experience on playing. While this game is the opposite of way. This is a lightweight self-discovery, self-learning element that if you get something out of this, that's good, but you can basically play one location, didn't work, no problem, go to the other location and try again, try an error model. So this is completely 2 different models encompassed with actually the same technical environment. And the key here for both of these is modular design. It means you can easily switch languages, you can easily switch content between the elements, and you can basically adapt the element. You can use the game for 12, 16 teaching hours, and you can use it also for 60 teaching hours. So this is basically the key, let's say, characteristic we always use when we, in the back of our minds, when we design learning environment with the game-based learning. Is it how agile, how flexible it is. So this was this. And now I move to the other element, which is our mobile learning game. And this is our first learning game we built back in 2015, although we were starting to think about in 2014. And of course, our main goal here was to think about how we can quite easily use mobile games in the gaming. And of course, there are a lot of different gamings. I don't say mobile games for learning. I don't say this one's the best. We just used it. And also we can prove it works because we did some research on it. So SmartLEO is basically it's a gamified quiz game. It features a quiz format, and also it features mini games that are repeated every 7th question. And of course, this is, you can put any content in it. We use this to teach law, to support students to teach law, artificial intelligence, economics, finance, marketing, but also in social studies. You can put any quiz in there, whatever. You can put any quiz. We have also quiz on Pokemon names. So we use this all. And of course, you need more like them. And the uniquest perspective is that we wanted to create system that accompanies learning process. So it's not substitutes the learning process. It's not the core element. We just want to have this as an accompanying tool, strengthening actually the ability and using to our advantage the digital natives of today's world, basically that they people glued are to their phones, basically. And the learning perspective is micro-learning. And the micro-learning is basically learning anytime, anywhere. And basically, if you sit on the bus or on the train, if you stand in the quay, you have 5 minutes over your coffee or lunch, and you usually take your phone and look through your social media or do something. You might also learn something. And of course, we wanted to use this mechanic to use this setup to actually create this learning environment. How it is basically you have questions mechanics that is flexible. You can add any question anytime. It's very simple CMS back there. You meet at a minimum you need 30 questions with 4 possible answers. There are also mini games. Some of the mini games are just for fun. We have like mini Pac-Man or something like this. And then we have also the mini games that are connected to knowledge, like you have passwords, you have crosswords, You can match images with between each other. You can have group categories, like group all the passwords together. Do they fit? Do they not fit? And also you can also quote, for example, like a mini game with a picture. So who said that, basically, for example. So you can create all sorts of different content. And of course, the theoretically number of categories that you can put, we have 7 in a game, and it's a lot. And of course, then you can delete some of those, and you can add those. Whatever content you want to have, you can use it. And of course, those categories can be easily turned on trend, turn off. Yes. We limit this, although theoretically it's unlimited. We limit this to the 10 per one instance, because then the game becomes too cluttered. You have to scroll down because there is a lot of buttons, and people don't like to scroll down. What is interesting, we also can monitor from the backend how people progress within if they play the game. And we discovered that is enough for the people to play 12 times the same category to actually master it. And we did also some research, and the research was published in a Simulation and Gaming back in 2016 or 17, I forgot, I'm sorry. And then we proved that actually this works. It means people can learn with such type of quizzes and the games. And of course, the further they progress, this is a typical average learning curve in the first 20 tries. But people on average were playing in the tests, although we said you don't have to, they played on average almost 27.5 times, which the maximum was, I think, around 60. So there were people also playing about 50, 60 times. In those chosen categories. So if we give the opportunity, and this is the idea that we did not force them to play, they were free to play this. There were of course some incentives for them to play the game, but if they did, we saw that there was a definite improvement in their testing, for example, in ability on tests in the real life. So this was quite interesting experiment, so we prove. Of course, now there are more sophisticated mobile games, although the implementation of the mobile games is tricky because there is a strong behavioral patterns that people use with games. So for example, I saw a lot of traditional business games put into the mobile, and they completely did not work. Because there is a completely different, let's say, attributes and the behavior pattern if you sit in front of a browser or computer and do something, and when you scroll for 5 minutes on your phone. So this is a completely different behavior pattern that we used to have. And unfortunately, the phones, the way they operate, they have a very strong influence on other behavioral patterns. And this is one of the elements to consider. For example, right now I am a leading expert in a governmental program to use games to teach children basics of cybersecurity. And basically what we did, we inherit, instead of creating like a traditional game, we inherited like a mobile video casual gaming style for this. So you do a mission, you learn one thing, for example, how to learn a better password or how to react to the cyberbullying. And then basically you move along. So we will see this game built in September, and then we will have testing, and there will be definitely some research around this. And then definitely we'll probably in the next conference in 2022, maybe I'll be able to show you some results of this design and experiment. So basically we learned from this, and now we try to implement this to much more sophisticated, much more difficult and also socially fragile topic. The other element is a crossover between the mobile gaming and browser gaming, because what we did is we created also alternate reality game. Sorry, this is a typo. And of course, the key is here that the phone is basically creating the reality, and you move through the real space, and you have to do some turns of tasks and mission, and this is the game about. So basically what is this is basically the game that we use in the campus, but we can also use in any space like the whole city or like the new building or the hotels and conference center. And there are basically some missions hidden in the places. There are game statuses, current tasks. You have to manage your resources. There are also some rankings, positioning, and others. The game is not a mobile game per se. It's not a native game. It's basically a frameless web browser design. This is like a little bit dirty trick on our side. It looks like a mobile game, but in reality, it's a browser game. It just doesn't have the frame of the web browser. We have integrated Twitter in this, so because we have a heavy storytelling in this game, and this is delivered by Thales through his Twitter. And there is, of course, this is completely non-linear game. It means students choose their adventure. Basically, there is a series of missions. If they do some mission, they unlock new missions and so on. So basically, how it looks like, it's very silly on the beginning because students start to get the classroom and then start running in opposite direction through the whole campus. And of course, they meet each other in some spaces or not. It's completely up to them. It's basically every student, every group, or every student, every group goes through their unique experience. And of course, all the missions cover all the topics we want them to cover. But there is multiple missions in the same area every single time. And of course, they have also different type of decisions to be made and also tasks to make on the end, because we hide those codes, we hide those tasks somewhere in the real life area, and they have to find them based on the clues given to the mission, and then do something like solve a chess puzzle, find a book in the library and solve the code, and so on and so on. So we give them ability to engage in this type of sales, and this is a very fun way to interact with them, and on the way they are able to use this. Of course, you can put any type of, this is a content-oriented game, so you can put any content in this as long as it fits into the format. But the format is very flexible on the other hand. And of course, you can make people, we use them for the first year student to get them familiar with the school and with how the school is operating. We have a quite large campus. And then where is the library? Where is the dean's office? Where is the cafeteria? This kind of stuff. Where is the bookstore? And so on. And of course, this is all content oriented, but we also use for the resource management and risk management. So we give them always choices. We give them high risk, high rewards, low risk, low rewards. It depends on how you want to structure this. We use this in the different context, changing the scenarios within the game. And you can use, as I said, any content you want, as long as it fits in, but you have to rebuild it to fit it into this mission level unlinear structure. Okay, now we move to the more ambitious part, and let's say most modern part of this area that we do. And this is basically the mixed reality, augmented reality, virtual reality, and mixed reality. And now in the last few years, there is an exponentially growing number of applications, mostly because of the falling prices of hardware, where we are buying the first IMGDs, they were costing thousands of dollars. Now they are much more affordable. There are even solutions that are around 100, 200 US. So, and they said even there will be solutions that will be even cheaper. Of course, mass production makes this possible. You have also mobile and cardboard solutions, although they are very limited in terms of interaction. So they are a little bit different. And of course, what is good about this is the ability to build visually rich immersive environments. And many researchers claim that this is the future of human-computer interface. It means basically we will be more directly interacting with the machines. And of course, right now also, there is also a huge trend of giving ability to low-cost simulator solutions. It means you can, instead of programming, you can basically create your simulated scenario just point and clicking and placing the object in the virtual empty room. If you imagine, for example, in the first Matrix, when the Neo enters the training and this is completely empty. So like vast space. This is basically the same. And you can put any object. Is it a machine? It's a tree. You can put a car. You can put other people in it. It depends on you. And you don't need, for many cases, like for example in base Unity, you don't, or also in Google has this. You don't need even to have the coding skills. It's enough. You can learn this how this system works. And and although this gives us ability to create very good training environment for hard skills, but this is difficult to transfer soft skills with this, because it's a completely different type of environment. Now I show you two solutions that we use for this. And the first one is the virtual crime scene. The virtual crime scene, the backstory is that one of the specialization in our law school is, of course, to being future prosecutor. One of the jobs of the prosecutor, unfortunately, is visiting crime scenes, helping collecting evidence, and also being able to judge then based on this evidence what to do, how to classify it, basically what to do then with your case. So, and of course, this is extremely boring subject, because this is a procedures, and of course, students did not want it to learn this. So instead, what we did is basically we created a VR game, which is a murder mystery. And a murder mystery is very simple. You enter the room, there is a dead body, there is a bunch of clues, and then you have to collect the evidence, but you can use the evidence and you're given the next clue if you collected it correctly. So accordingly to the procedure. And then basically you can solve this murder mystery only if you correct it correctly, like wear gloves to this, use swabs for collecting the DNA and evidence, and so on and so on. So every time you do correctly procedure, the game pushes you to the next clue and lets you save. And on the end, will give you the solution. Have you successfully prosecuted this murder or not? And of course, this is as we have multiple iterations of this game. There are different scenes and so on. And this course, from being the least popular, became one of the most popular courses in the law school. So one of the reasons was this game. And of course, this is the typical instance-based learning environment. So you have a learning instance, and we basically do not tell students what they have to do. We just tell them you should be using procedures. Here's the procedures. And then we put them in this learning environment, and then they basically have to manage and then learn by experience and learn by discovery. So this is a typical instance-based learning. They have a virtual closed, and of course they can reset the game anytime they want, and then they can, let's say, basically learn as they go. The next one is our newest game, and of course this game was our shot to teach soft skills. And because one of the history says on one of the VR conferences, one of my colleagues said during one of the parties, it's not possible to build a good VR game for soft skill acquisition. And I said, hold my beer, I'll be back in 2 years. And then we said, okay, can we teach somewhere something soft in the VR? So we decided to go with public speaking. We had a brainstorming event, and then we said, okay, we are going with this. So what we did is we have designed a game for public speaking skills. This was back in 2018 when we finished the first prototype. And it is a virtual simulation game with 2 modes of work. There's a lot of instructions. We have training video material that is in the private YouTube channel. And of course, there is also a mobile application that participants can vote on different questions. They can ask questions personally in the game and so on. The game was built in Unity, and it's very important that is, again, a modular design. This will occurring theme in my speech would be a modular design, basically. It has 2 modes of operation with 2 different learning types behind. The first one is a practice mode, and the practice mode is this mimic the master, so follow the master type of scenario. It means you have prepared case presentation, and those YouTube videos are from the professional speakers, both male and female, that are presenting this presentation, and you basically have to mimic them as best as you can, and the game gives you points if you do this correctly. It means if you follow the master. And this is the first type of gameplay. The other type of game is the challenge mode. The challenge, this is where the magic happens. In the challenge mode, you can upload your own simulation, your own presentation to the game. And you can practice your own presentation in this virtual scenario. And there is no let's say, master model, although the game measures everything what you do and gives you on the end and during the game also instant feedback. So during the game, you have on the edge of your vision 4 icons, and basically it shows you have you had good sight direction, have you been speaking not too fast or not too slow, and how loud you are speaking, is it too loud, or maybe too, people in most of the cases they are afraid to talk someone and they start to speak not loud enough, and of course that you've been doing gestures, so not enough is good, but if like I do, I constantly wave my hands around, which is also bad, by the way, and I know this, I'm sorry, it's too late for me already. And of course this is also all measured and also given in form of a report to the participant on the end, second by second, also in an aggregated form. So it's basically, you can choose different form, you can enter your name, you can choose or practice scenario or challenge mode. This is a boardroom that is 5 interactive avatars that are both mixed in gender and also represents different nationalities and different races. So we want to have also an environment that is inclusive. And of course, they react based on your type of presentation as well. Of course, we have this like base avatars. We have a randomized avatar creation system that creates up to 5 avatars diverse on the race, gender balance. But the core mechanics of them is the same, basically. And of course, they are business people. And of course, the aim is to train, and this is very important, this can be played both in classroom and in asynchronous way. It means you can also create like a VR lab. Students basically sign up for a session online, they go there, play, they receive the report. You can also capture the gameplay, and you can store this in the OneDrive, and then basically share with the instructor, and they can get feedback and so on. So it's also, let's say, pandemic friendly, because then you can do this by yourself alone. And of course, this is very flexible. Again, modular design. We have already 2 implementation, one in Europe and one in USA, where it's actually used as a part of the leadership management training in a university in Virginia. And then we received for this program Seaman Champion Award 2019 for teaching. So was recognized by the international community. And of course, the outlook for the augmented reality and VR for training is vast. It is one of the fastest growing areas. And of course, especially augmented reality as deal for on-the-job and on-the-site training and also onboarding for people. Because basically, there's also a lot of companies already doing this. It's also the future of job safety training and also technological support and sales support systems. One of my students wrote last year a very interesting master thesis. He was working for the company called Hilti. Maybe many of you know, they are one of the world leading companies producing construction equipment and machines and tools. And what they did is they created a sales support system that every machine they have in the catalog can be now seen and simulated in virtual reality. So the salesperson does not go with a catalog anymore. It goes with a VR headset and basically can give it to the customer. And then basically the customer can virtually place the machine on the virtual construction site, see how it works, how the maintenance is provided, and so on and so on. And what is interesting when we compared the data between those salespeople who used the sales and between the years, the same who also start using this, the differences between the years and after the macroeconomic differences was that the people who used VR for sales had more than 20-30% better results in sales than those who didn't. And also who started also as well back to back. And of course, this is also one of the interesting, also a lot of different industries are starting to use VR and augmented reality to increase the elements. We also work in the video game industry in Poland. which is quite successful and also fast growing industry in Warsaw area, but also in whole Poland. And they across a lot to they also making a lot of games that are very close to learning. For example, one of them is maybe you don't know, it's Car Mechanic Simulator, which actually features real cars with the real parts, and they are 100% real life accurate. It means you can learn how to basically build a car in the game. And there also a different version. There is a tractor simulator for agriculture and different types of motorcycle simulator, mechanic, and so on. So you can basically learn in this gaming environment how to maintain and even fix the car. It's very popular. It has many millions of sales on Steam. And also there is a mobile gaming version as well of this game. Also, we work with the Klabater. This is the most recent game I work with them. It is basically a moonshine simulator. Moonshine is the illegal way to make strong alcohol in places like Kentucky, Virginia, and the Appalachia region. And I was responsible for the mathematical model on the economics part of this game. It's coming to Steam in the next half of the year. And of course, this is although it's of course very playful, and if you look at the, let's say, economic side, this is actually a very sophisticated economic simulator, and also the picture is very accurate chemical process as well in terms of how you make the from the compounds to actually ready alcohol. So this is we cooperate in such projects as well, which is benefit. So they learn from us on how to build more, let's say, realistic systems. And on the other hand, we learn from them how to build more technologically advanced, more, let's say, user-friendly the games that can be easily adapted also for the learning purposes. If you were to reskin this, you can build, let's say, basically a alcohol production company, which is legal if you just change the graphics and part of the mechanics. And then what we discovered, and so for the cooperation, is that we are this is my own, let's say, observation. You can hold me accountable for this. That if you look at how we look at the engagement of people, it says basically everything starts with the content. And the content is the king, unfortunately. And in many of our design, we always start from the content perspective. So what do we want to teach? What is our perspective? And then we move further. And of course, then we create tools to deliver this content. And it doesn't have to be just the game. So we have YouTube videos, we have tutorials, we have onboarding. We have also written traditional manuals, exercises, presentations. And then, of course, on top of this, we build the set of mechanics that should deliver this, regardless if it's a gamification system, because we build those as well, or it's a game. So the elements that delivers this content with those tools. And of course, always the most important mechanics is instant feedback. The more and more frequent feedback we give them, the bigger chances they will come back for more, and they will get into the behavioral loop. And this also, the feedback creates meaning. Why should I use this? Why this is important? What I have from this? And these meanings produce emotions. And emotions are important because the emotions are glue for the memory. This is why the memories stick. And of course, this gives ability to build a long-term engagement and long-term remembering of the events. And then, of course, this creates the memories, emotions, creates engagement, and hopefully we build this loop every single time for our game. On the end, in my last slide, I want to, let's say, I try to look into my crystal ball, looking at what we do and what is around the corner. I'll try to my personal view what will be the next big thing in our area. So modular, so this is basically my personal outtake for this. So basically, modular design for more flexibility will stay, and this is what pandemic shows us. Those solutions that were more flexible, more modular, had a dramatic increase in usage. those who were singular, monothematic had a lot of problems. So if you want to build for the future digital solutions, they have to be agile, they have to be modular, they have to be able to adapt to the different situation. And then on the other hand, the digital games give us the ability to scale and to reach people we normally could not reach. What is the next challenge before us is still, although we have even, let's say you have 100,000 people playing the game, but you still want to individualize touch to them. And this is the next big thing, individualized engagement loops and knowledge gap recognition. Mostly connection with the second is AI-powered mentoring and recommender systems. It means that instead of a human teacher, we will have AI that will give feedback, that will also recommend next elements and next what you should be doing and what your weak spot, what your strength spot. And then of course, in VR space, distributed VR learning environments. What are distributed VR learning environments? If you heard about Second Life was a huge in the previous decade, which was basically an online space. And now they are making this whole game in VR only. It means you can be able to be present in the same space with everyone else, anyone who connects the game. And this is the next big thing. If you saw the movie Ready Player One, this is basically it, but just for more serious purposes. And then, of course, we have what we also start working on this. This is data-driven machine learning simulation model generation. So the next thing is what we work on is that we do not build the mechanics and models anymore. We gather the real-life examples, real-life data, and use machine learning to generate the meta models and then use them to generate the simulations. And this is the next big thing. We already use this and this comes from the video game industry. And we know this technology has a huge potential for simulation gaming as well. And of course, the last one is also what the pandemic showed us, and this is growing, is this interactive digital narrative for complexity dissemination. Rise of anti-vaxxing movement. In all these elements, one of the critical problems of today's world is that the world is extremely complex. And the problem is, how do you tell people those complex problems in a simple way? Because the problem is that with the opposite side, there's always the conspiracy theorists, they offer simple solution. And the problem is that reality is complicated. And one of the elements we can use from the simulation gaming perspective is to create interactive digital narrative for complexity dissemination. It's basically a difficult name, was how to translate difficult elements from the social knowledge space to people that they will increase their knowledge in a friendly way. And that's it. Thank you. That was my, so thank you. So that's it. We can go to the questions and comments.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Session was, it was a wonderful session full of effectiveness and future technology for digital game-based learning. Thank you so much. I am now going to request all panel members and participants to ask the questions. Participants can write their questions in the question answer tab, and panelists can ask the questions. One of the question is from Dr. Vinod Damblekar, sir, that what are the elements and challenges of designing and conducting a game-based course?
The last, I did not catch the last two words. Sorry. The game?
What are the elements and challenges of designing and conducting a game-based course?
A game-based course, yes. This is a very good question.
Yes.
And so I'll give you the short answer. So designing actually a digital game, it's not that difficult. But to use it correctly is a didactic process, is a tricky part. because you have to. I have a lot of experiences with like a lot of organization like business schools and other universities saying, oh, we don't use simulation games. We tried this and it was a complete disaster. And when I start to talk to them why it was disaster, it's either it was based in the wrong context, in the random moment of the studies, and maybe with the wrong selection of game or scenario. It was too complex, too difficult, or too easy. So from the learning perspective, like long story short, from the learning perspective, technology is irrelevant. Hear me out. It's more about the context of usage. How do you use this educational process than what is behind the, let's say, the black screen of you as a game master. It could be computer, but it could be dice. It doesn't really matter for the player. But how you use it, how you provide meaning, how this learning experience relates to their position when they are right now in the part of their education, their life, this is what is critical. So when we design the game and we design the course, we always start from the learning perspective. We never start from the technological perspective. Of course, we usually have some technology in mind, but how we built this puzzle on the end is strictly connected to the learning process we want to facilitate with this particular element or topic or a course or a type of audience. So it's the opposite of, okay, I have a program, I just slap a game on top of it. Well, you can, and if you're lucky, it will work. But if you're unlucky, it will backfire hard into your face.
Thank you, Marcin.
Next question is from Miss Elizabeth Ellen Lee, and the question is that what do we need to do to ensure that the educators and parents of the learners are kept up to speed with these strategies?
Oh, a hard question. Thank you, Elizabeth. I knew that I can count on you on this one. This is very difficult. And now there is two types of this. The situation changed in the last 2 years dramatically. So before the pandemic, talking to the deans, to the rectors, to the program directors about correct usage of technology, not just games, technology in general, is a difficult task because what they see costs. And they see higher sophistication. Oh my God, I have to have servers. I have to buy how-mounted displays. I have to train my people. This is a mountain of costs for them. But then pandemic came and suddenly it became a necessity. And when we say there is no coming back from this academic world before and after pandemic, one of the aspects of this is exactly this. We have to make sure that we modular, that we flexible, that we can use this easily with the digital space. Because if another of the corona unfortunately returns in the next second, fourth, fifth wave with this, then we will have to go back to the digital space. We don't have a choice in this. So if we have, so we can use basically this to actually make people more up to speed. And digitalization is a fact, and academia was slacking for many years in this area. But now these processes speed up. I see all across Europe, all across USA, dramatic increase in implementation in the digital space. Not just games, I'm talking about digital in general. But this is a big question, how you make decision makers appreciate those solutions more. And the answer is flexibility, ability to adapt to the situations and saying, hey, it works basically in any environment. So we cannot be one trick pony, basically. We have to be many trick ponies.
Thanks, Marcin. I'm also thinking about the amount of knowledge that educators feel they'll need to gain to be proficient. I've really loved what you've created, but I know many academics would find it almost terrifying to try to step into the kind of spaces you're offering them. So that's sort of the basis for my question. But
what we do is I have a designer perspective.
Yeah.
So this is different. But how we design this, we also design this with a, let's say, person who will be in charge in this in mind. So we try to design this as, let's say, user-friendly as potentially possible. Like the VR games we showed, it's very simple. You just take a VR kit or you plug it in, you enter it, that's it. You have to just put the name of your student and give them the head-mounted display. Here, there you go. You have try this. So and then the game takes over. It means we have tutorial, we have onboarding inside. So you can focus on this, what is important to teach them how to make procedure on the crime scene, how to collect evidence, how to do public speaking, how to behave in public setting, and so on. And then you have, on the other hand, you have this environment that students can test. And then what we give you is we give you like a condensed report that measures everything 10 times per second. And then you can, of course, we aggregate the data in one sheet as well. So you can immediately say, okay, you are speaking too soft or too loud or too fast or too slow. Don't look at your shoes, look at the people, and so on. And this is exactly what we want to give them. And again, it's a scary moment. And I've seen this 100 times when we first time bring this thing on a big card to the classroom. And I see the amount of sheer terror in the eyes of the person who teaches this course. But when they try 1, 2, 3 times, and we first only said, hey, and what we do? We don't play our game. We play like a fun game, like this lightsaber or super hot.
Yes.
And they say, wow, this is so much fun. And then now we will show you the real deal. So we try to ease up the process. And I know it's scary, and especially for people who don't have, like us, much to do with technology. But we try to convince them by first of all, happy users, their reactions, and also, hey, just try, no strings attached, and let's play fun game, let's play lightsaber, and cut the boxes with lightsabers.
Good point. You got a couple of more questions too, I can see.
Okay.
Thanks for that, Marcin.
But on the point, Elizabeth, you're absolutely right.
Can I just, it's Marcus Watson here. Can I just follow that one up, Elizabeth? I would say we're probably at maybe a 1% penetration in higher education around games. And I'm wondering if people are thinking, how many designers do we need in order to support those academics? Because my feeling would be, at the rate we're going at the moment, we're maybe 100 to 200 years away from delivering current technology.
We need to clone Marcin enthusiastically and frequently.
Well, I'll tell you what that was. This is a curve, a learning curve with this. And I know, Marcus, what do you feel? This is true. It's like you need a lot on the beginning. And then the deeper you go, as a paradox, you need less of them. For 2 reasons. First of all, this is one of the, let's say, future elements I gave, is that the learning environments and building this, it's becoming easier and easier. I have a course that's student-based, build first gaming VR scenario with zero previous experience in coding. Of course, they're not sophisticated. And still, you just drag items and you program with just point and click the animations or behavior, change the color of the box, and so on. And they can do this. And this is also one of the elements that the technology always evolving. And one of the elements is also going down to the masses as well. It means, of course, again, you have to convince yourself it's worth it, and I want to do this. But and again, it's a cost benefits factor. If I see the value, I will find a way. If I don't see the value, whatever I will throw at those people in terms of how good it is and how fun it is to use in the classroom or in virtual environment, they will always says, we don't have time, I'm overworked, I have already 200 students waiting for the grades, and so on and so on. And yeah, this is the eternal question. Again, the only thing what I can say is you have to try it by yourself with different scopes, and if you will see the value, you will find the time and motivation to do this. If you won't see the value, you will always find the excuse not to use it. And the transition period is difficult, but in many cases it's worth it. And the pandemic unfortunately show it's in many cases necessary.
Marcin,
I cannot sit people in front of the gaming table in my classroom anymore.
So there's some good questions in the Q&A, Marcin. Can you see those?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I will say that I have 3 of those here. So, so Dr. Navider Kaur, what is the importance of this course for a career-oriented life? I don't understand. I don't know what is a career-oriented life. Can you?
Career, it's double R, C-A-R-E-R. It's a typing mistake.
Okay.
For a career-oriented life.
Okay, career-oriented life. We use this in a very different context. So we use this at the, as I said, my first slide. It depends on the context. We use these games as a discovery for the first-year students, but we use this on the executive MBA level as well. And then the context, even usage of the same game changes dramatically. It means for the MBA, people who have sometimes 20, 30 years of management experience, the game is completely different. Mostly what they do is associate their memories. So what we work with already preset of mental models. And then the aim of this game is to give them the new perspective. Because mostly what they do is tend to close themselves in the box of their already established modes of operation. For the first-year student, this is a journey of discovery. They have no associations with this whatsoever. And what we want to give them is we want to give them motivation, actually, and ability to see, hey, this could be fun. We want to give you some additional motivation and elements to play with without any penalty. And then again, the same game can have completely different meaning for those two groups of people. And this is a very important element. It means you cannot, let's say, change this in order. And then there are some longitudinal studies. The best source for this is Willy, who was also giving the lecture in this seminar. They made a long-term studies on using games in impact of them in the career life, and they found that those experiences have impact on people. And I saw that we influenced the attitudes of entrepreneurship, those people that I showed you with the Hotel Stars course. We changed their perspectives effectively, which the research clearly showed. Okay, whatever a lot of viability in data, example in agricultural sector, how ML can be applied to design game-based learning. Oh, this is I had a recently lecture exactly on this. Agriculture and agri-food business is one of the areas that is mainly, unfortunately, neglected by the simulation gaming. So there's a relatively low number of simulations offered to them. And I think this is a pity because they're a very important part, and this education is very important as well, critically important right now. And then what we can do is basically, for example, there are excellent abilities to create, for example, the whole training environments and scenarios based on data generated from the real life. And the problem is that agriculture food industry was not, let's say, collecting the data for millennia, basically. But now, mostly thanks to the drone technology, they started to automatically collect the data. And such data can be used. Environments like fields, crop selection, distributions, movement of the machines, and changes of weather, and how climate change impacts the agriculture can be now simulated. But for the machine learning, we need data for this, and now we have the data. So this is also one of the areas that grows really fast. I know a lot of my colleagues, especially from Japan, are doing this, doing such games, and they span the whole even distribution supply chains, like for example for milk production and for other food production related element. We also want to build right now a game for craft beer production, which is my passion project, and also we want to build a virtual reality game on food preparation safety. Now, does the fine artist and animator contribute in development? Of course, we always welcome the graphic designers, and as you can see, a lot of especially young people, they consume a lot of gaming content, and of course they expect the same level of fidelity and the same level of visual attractiveness in the serious games as well. So yes, these are also important. And also in the medical sector, well, there are two sectors that are world leaders in simulation and gaming, and this is medical and military. So if you look at the Serious Games Conference or SimTex and SimHealth and SimHouse, they have a conference in a few weeks right now, isn't it, Elizabeth? They have conference next week or over next week? No, in September. So they're like huge simulations and games and devoted to the military and healthcare sector. They are the global leaders. The most of money goes into those two sectors. For example, an example, right now, the US Department of Defense gave $21 billion contract to Microsoft to rebuild their visor, augmented reality visor for the real combat situation. So create like additional layers like aiming, information, commands, everything will go through this head-mounted display. It's a see-through. It's HoloLens. They call it HoloLens. So they want to build a combat version of HoloLenses for the future combat scenarios. In there, they have this program of the cyber warfare and joint tasks leadership forces simulations, something like this. So there is a lot of.
And Marcin, I don't think you can see the chat, but Claudia has put a question in there.
I see.
Can
no,
you see?
I don't see this. I see.
You see the
chat. Yeah, I have two chats. Unfortunately, I'm sorry. Okay. Marcin, what are the elements? So we not challenging games. Okay, this is done. What then, Elizabeth? You okay? Then the Toshiko. Thank you, Marcin. Can you suggest some risk that you recognized for transforming complex realities into simpler structure in the game? Level of fidelity, Toshiko, is also a tricky question. It means what you have to boil down the problem, and then somehow fit this into the gaming structure. And I wrote this article on complexity for the seminar on knowledge on simulation and gaming under Professor Klavers that actually touches this subject. What is the road between the real life system and the game on the end? And this road is tricky and full of perils, unfortunately. And you can make a lot of mistakes in it. And the good games, when they have one very common thing, they really good grasp this element of complexity. So the designer did a good job between the observing the real life system and then the picturing them in the game and transferring them through the game mechanics to the players. But this is a tricky part in this, unfortunately.
I understand, but can you give us some concrete examples using your games?
Okay, the easiest one was the hotel stars to this. I designed like a double loop complexity model that introduced small incremental changes within the year, but they are not significant, like 1 or 2 elements. And then every every 4 decisions or every full year, there is like, boom, big change. Complete new section of the game is opening. So we want to keep people, let's say, engaged. And then basically we want to engage them step by step, but also we want to give them a challenge. So, and this is a try and error. We tested for this game because it was very big. We tested 6 or 7 different types of complexity design with test subjects. We invited students and we tested with them. And then the answer is very simple: test it, test it, test it, test it. I'll give you an example. The first mathematical model of the hotel stars had 1,600 variables because we wanted to have as realistic model as potentially possible. And students crucified us with this model. They could not understand a thing. And then we boiled it down to 600 variables, and majority of those were constants, and activated only when they need them to activate. So there is no good pattern. You have to basically learn as you go, and then you test it, and then come back to the drawing board, test it, come back to the drawing board until you have something that people say, yeah, that's it, I can get it.
Thank you.
Marcin, is it possible for you to go back to your circular slide on
Sure.
learning? Oh.
There you go.
So I think you're missing something from this that I'm sure you're doing, and that's reflection. So when you leave the game and you're motivated so much by the game that you reflect on it, and this is where deep learning occurs, and it may involve talking with other people, it may involve going to sources, or it may involve just thinking about it, how you're going to redo that game. And I think that that needs to come into this model if you want to engage with educators more.
True. Maybe that's what I consider this part of the engagement from the definition, basically. It means if people are engaged, they will spend time and they will devote their free time to think about this and draw conclusions. Maybe this should be more emphasized, and I completely agree with you. But but what I wanted to show by this, of course, it's limited. You cannot have everything. It's because I want to show just the things connected to the gameplay itself. But you're right, absolutely. Self-reflection is the critical, although we consider this the part of the engagement itself.
Okay, so thank you for giving all the answers.
One moment. I want to also this Claudia asked, are students more open to changes when it comes to IR, VR, and IE? It depends on the students, unfortunately. We have students coming from more technologically oriented, like digital marketing and so on, and they're crazy about AI because this is all the rage about this right now. So yes, and they are very enthusiastic towards these new technologies. And we have also students from more traditional, let's say, specialization. They are not so hot on this. They consider this, oh my God, not another game, not another technology we have to learn. And then this is, but this depends on the students a lot. Can you stop presentation modus to see the others? In the VR game for public speaking? Yeah, the instructor can pause the game any moment. And we don't have a time limit for this. You can speak for 5 minutes, you can speak for an hour if you want to. But yes, the trainer can pause the game any moment. You can just take your helmet off and the game will stop. how many different did you use in one study or in one course? In one study or one course we usually use 1 or 2 solutions. During the whole study, students are going through at least 2-3 simulation games, and they can ability to go through another 2 or 3. But this is optional. What is the role of the facilitator in desktop software? Oh, Alana, please. There's a whole, I can give like 6 hours lecture on the role of the facilitator itself. Please, don't kill me. Different type of technologies require different type of facilitation. And of course, the facilitation is extremely important. However, it changed because of the pandemic. Because now we don't see this. And then, for example, if I have a VR game that can be played both synchronous in the classroom and asynchronous, students goes to the VR lab and do it by themselves and gets the report, and you can also see the gameplay through the stream. Then the facilitation changes as well. It means you can talk about this post game and then or pre-game. But then you don't see the gameplay. You don't even participate in it. You see the results of it. And then basically you change the role from the traditional facilitator to more like coaching, mentoring style. So, and again, but also different technologies requires different, and also how we deliver this influences. So there's like a lot of facets you can do. And basically let's say this road of the facilitation and learning how to work with different students, groups, people's games never ends and will never end. And I can talk about this for 24 hours next. So I'm stopping right now. No, I'm not going in this way. What is the cost associated with gaming simulation which can be used at the university? Well, it depends. If you want to basically license, there are a lot of free games, like you can use this game for pop-up shop completely for free, so you can learn by yourself. Absolutely no problem. So could be very little, or if you want to build your own custom solutions like we do, they could be very high. But we always try to find some kind of a form of grants and connect it to the research. And in most of the cases, we do find this. Of course, it requires another set of skills, which is writing good grant applications, but you always can find someone who can do this as a part of your team. And we have such people who can basically write good grant applications, which is a very important skill in our opinion. And of course, then you can also, let's say, and then later on, the costs actually connected to the maintaining is relatively low. It's just you have to do maintenance. If there are upgrades to the systems, you have to do this. But this is mostly if you have the technical stuff at the university, they can do it with a closed eyes. And then the maintaining this is not costly. The entry costs can be high if you want to train a lot of people, if you want to build your own custom solutions. If you just want to use somebody else's licenses, usually not. They have different rates, different solutions. Right now, there are a lot of trainings for trainers were for free because of the pandemic. So they ease up the solution because, of course, they see the money in the future, because if you will introduce the game, people are reluctant to change them down the road. So if you paid for the licenses, there was a high probability you'll be paying for the licenses in the future. So the costs really vary on what you want to use, what is the scope of the usage, and how deep you want to go into this rabbit hole. Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much for giving wonderful information to all of us. I now request founder of Mentis, Dr. Vinod Damblekar, sir, to propose words of thanks.
Thank you, Rupali. Marcin, that was a wonderful presentation. We covered a lot of stuff, keeping all of us occupied. The questions ranging across from cost of technology to the transfer of learning to assessments, and how do you get people to be engaged in learning despite the challenges of technology and so on. I think you put it very well, saying that the learning issues, the learning objectives are more important than the choice of technology. The future is exciting because people like you and the games that you produce, I think are going to be very common, maybe 3-4 years from now. And perhaps face-to-face games, I hope they don't become obsolete. Thank you very much for a wonderful session. I'm very happy to have all these participants listening, asking questions, participating very eagerly as well. To the backend team at Sri Vaishnav and their respective teachers and faculty members, especially Dr. Dhar, who headed this team. Thank you very much for being here and making this webinar series possible. We finished 21 webinars so far. We didn't realize we would go this far, and we have 7 more to go. Thank you very much. Please come again.
Thank you. Once again, great honor. And I had really a lot of fun presenting. Thank you for all the questions.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Thank you, Dr. Sharma. Thank you, Marcus. Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you,
so
Elena.
much.
And
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, everyone, and bye-bye.
Claudia, good to see you.
Thank you.
Elena.